Welcome back to Jades Corner. In today's video, we're going to settle the score between who would win in a fight to the death between the leader of the Alexandria Safe Zone, Rick Grimes, and one of the most iconic video game characters recently brought into live action, Joel Miller. These two brutal survivors of the zombie apocalypse from The Walking Dead and The Last of Us have decent fighting skills and abilities that will make a battle to the death between them epic, and these two fighters will be fighting at their absolute peaks, which means they'll fight in their most powerful states. So join me as we break down the battle between these two characters regarding strength and skills, speed, agility, durability, endurance, combat experience, and hacks. But before we begin this fight to the death, if you're new here, subscribe, hit that like button, and ring the notification bell to stay up to date on all things fantasy, creature, supernatural, or monsters, including these thrilling battles. Let's see who wins this battle between the leader of the New World and Ellie's protector.
It's survival of the fittest on a global scale. Who among the challengers will make it to the top? It doesn't get any more intense than this. I think we're about to see something big. The ultimate battle for supremacy has begun.
If we see you out here, anywhere near our people, if I so much as even catch a whiff of your scent, I will kill you.
It's coming at me, bro.
Yeah, I get it. I get it. Shit happens.
I said keep walking. Where is she?
Fuck you.
I don't have time for this.
Unhook her.
Move!
Oh my God. Please.
Let me go.
You've just come after her.
The battle has begun. Are you ready? Who will emerge a champion? Let's get started.
So to start off the strength category, we're going to start off with striking strength for Rick Grimes. He scales to wall level, and as he got older during the CRM era, he got much stronger physically than in his younger days, which is kind of crazy to believe. So he's much higher now at peak human strength at the top of wall level. His attack potency, which goes hand in hand with this, is comparable to Daryl Dixon, if not superior, who traded blows with Beta, someone who survived falling down an elevator shaft and recovered with slight visible sign of injury, but was mostly fine. He knocked Aaron out cold with a single punch to the face, broke the nose of a decapitated head with a few punches, and almost killed Tyrese, a former NFL player, with 6 punches. He busted open a door with a kick in a heavily weakened state after nearly getting beat to death by the governor. He knocked Merle Dixon out cold with a single hit, who was on par fighting wise to Daryl, his younger brother. He killed a walker in one kick and broke a wooden plank off a door with his bare hands. He also possibly is much stronger than this because he can fight those who can easily harm him, especially in his current physical prime, as CRM Rick Grimes is his strongest state in the franchise. For his lifting strength, he scales to class 1, which is above superhuman physical levels. Class 1 is the equivalent of having the world record for deadlift, and he was able to lift a grown man out of a pit with one hand and overpowered people, throwing them a good few meters away from him. He is also capable of physically overpowering people, such as in his fights with Andrew, Okafor, Major General Beal, Daryl, and Negan, at least for a period of time. He's physically inferior to Philip Blake, aka the governor, as he got overpowered by him and nearly got killed in a one-on-one fight with him to the death, but I'm pretty sure CRM Rick being vastly superior to the Rick featured in season 4 of The Walking Dead, which is when he had that same fight with the governor, is mopping the floor with the governor now. It's not even up for debate, really, I would pretty convincingly say. So yeah, next we're going to move on to Joel. So for Joel, his striking strength scales to street level, which is inferior to most of the heavy hitters from the Walking Dead universe, in particular Rick Grimes, who he's versing in this battle, as class 1 combatants are superior to street level tier opponents in striking power. He's around street level, as mentioned before, which inches below Rick's physical strength, as he beat a guard to death with his bare hands, something which did have severe physical repercussions. He also scales higher when using weapons, such as when he one-shotted an infected with a hammer. For his lifting strength, he's also inferior to Rick in this aspect, as he's peak human, which Rick surpasses based on his lifting strength feats featured in various media showcased in the Walking Dead live action universe. Joel can regularly restrain trained soldiers, which Rick is following the ones who live, but Rick is superior to every other soldier at the CRM minus Okafor, so he's an exception. He should also be capable of snapping people's necks with ease, which people at peak human strength can do with relative ease. Rick is superior and beats Joel in both of these subcategories, so strength goes to Rick Grimes.
Will the tide of battle turn?
For skill, Rick overall is more skilled, especially after all the military training he received from the CRM, on top of him being a former sheriff for Kings County. He's also skilled with more optional equipment he could use in this fight more than Joel. For Joel, although he's skilled to a degree, he's overall inferior to Rick, as he's skilled with less weapons and equipment than Rick is. Joel is also an inferior fighter to Rick, as Rick has military combat training and is a top 5 combatant in the Walking Dead universe as of the ending of The Ones Who Live. Rick wins this category pretty handedly.
What will happen now?
So for speed, I'm gonna give combat speed to Rick, but I'm gonna give reaction speed to Joel. This is a post-recording look back at the speed category. So I said that reaction speed goes to Joel. It actually goes to Rick in this aspect. So this is just me correcting myself post-recording the speed category. So I'm gonna add this edit in the video. So yeah, apologies for that. It's actually both going to Rick. So Rick takes combat and reaction speed. Apologies for the mistake when recording this for the first time. So for Rick, for combat speed, as a physical fighter, Rick boasts superior combat speed to Joel. He's able to dodge quick swings from barbed wire baseball bats and can perceive and react quicker than most people are able to draw weapons, as he can draw them quicker than almost anyone else can in his own verse. He's also quick enough to evade gunfire being shot at by multiple people, as seen at the beginning of season 6 when he's in the RV trying to dodge the wolves and get back to Alexandria and escape the gigantic herd that's coming for them. As for Joel, Joel has inferior combat speed to Rick, although Joel is extremely close in this subcategory, at least when it comes to using firearms. The reason he's inferior is because Rick has been shown on screen having quicker combat speed times when fighting hand to hand with his opponents, as opposed to Joel. Joel is fast enough to attack trained soldiers armed with guns before they can react, which is extremely impressive, though we see Rick do this too to a superior extent. He's about the same speed wise when it comes to using firearms as Rick, as he could easily get the drop on people with his quick draw. Overall, Rick is slightly superior to Joel in this aspect, since Joel is a bit older than Rick and his age in the show is catching up to him as he's past his physical prime. So speed overall goes to Rick in my opinion.
And the battle continues.
Okay, so for agility, Rick is just more agile than Joel, simply due to him being younger and faster even in his early 50s, as Rick is just entering his physical prime post CRM training and the loss of his arm, as he's clearly a better fighter and overall combatant than he ever was in his younger days, excluding his murder jacket era where he was an absolute complete monster. Negan even stated that he didn't want anything to do with murder jacket era Rick from season 5. Rick's body, even at 50 years old, is still able to allow him to keep up with any fighter, even people stronger and better than him at combat, such as Okafor. For Joel, because he's nearly 60 years old, being 56, his age has begun to play a factor into his mobility, so he's not as agile in his fights showcased in season 1 of the show. So Rick easily takes agility in my opinion.
Let's keep it up.
For durability, Rick is an absolute tank of a unit just by himself without his group. He was able to tank hits from Lucille, Negan's prized barbed wooden baseball bat capable of crushing human skulls with a few blows, tanked a few shots to his chest while wearing a bulletproof vest without breaking a single bone, withstood blows from superior fighters at the time such as Merle, Shane, Tyrese, the Governor, Joe, Jesus, Negan, and Daryl. Jesus, Negan, the Governor, and Daryl being up there with some of the best fighters in the verse. Suffered no visible injuries after having a motorcycle drop on top of his leg, didn't flinch after casually getting punched in the face, survived a M67 grenade explosion though he was several meters away, tanked a hit to his ribcage after getting hit by a rifle butt, shrugged off a fall from a few meters, survived falling 15 feet after being shot, got slammed to a wall rack so hard that it broke, and survived an explosion at point blank range that blew up a bridge holding numerous TNT. Even as a 50-year-old in the current era of the series, he was able to tank multiple blows from Oak Okafor, one of the best fighters in the verse, and tanked another punch to his face that caused him to spit out blood. And this isn't even all of his durability feats, it's just some of his most impressive that I can name off the top of my head. For Joel, his greatest durability feat that we've seen on screen is him surviving a car crash. To his overall detriment, his age does prevent him from having any crazy durability feats in the verse, as shown in season 1 of The Last of Us, as Joel is always overpowered in every fight, unlike his video game counterpart. Even after beating down a trained soldier to death with his bare hands, he suffered a severe hand injury, as mentioned earlier in the strength category. Rick only suffered this once in The Walking Dead during his fight with Tyrese, and later on in the series this is shown to no longer be an issue for him. Joel is also noticeably much more handicapped in all stats across the board in the show compared to his video game counterpart, which accounts for his durability being significantly decreased as well. This goes to Rick easily.
Pick up the pace!
For endurance / stamina, Rick is easily peak human level in terms of endurance. He can fight people without feeling any significant pain for long periods of time, even at age 50, which is nuts. Traveled hundreds of meters while impaled and survived an explosion not too long after, and still survived. Wandered through his entire hometown quickly despite having just woke up from a coma he was in for 2 months without any food or water at the time during the very beginning of the apocalypse. Killed hordes of walkers for hours without rest during the No Way Out era, and ran for about 3 miles while carrying Carl in his arms. Mind you, he did this before Carl bled out. He was shot by Otis in the abandonment with his rifle prior to this at the beginning of season 2. Cleared out an entire cell block of walkers by himself in the prison after his first wife Lori died from childbirth. Ran a very long distance back to Alexandria after his RV broke down in season 6 while being chased by a horde of hundreds of walkers. Chased Jesus on foot until he had to stop his van. Managed to kill the Winslow walker after one of its spikes pierced clean through his hand, and got into and won a gunfight against the Saviors Negan's group after being shot prior to him killing them. For Joel, despite him being an old man, he is still able to push through all types of pain, which would easily place him at athletics to slight peak human levels of durability. He was also able to kill multiple people and torture 2 men effectively despite having just been bedridden. He was also able to kill, on top of that, 18 people non-stop and possibly more during his raid on the hospital to rescue Ellie from Marlene and the Fireflies. Rick annihilates Joel when it comes to stamina, and it clearly goes to Rick.
Which one of these two will emerge on top?
For combat experience, Rick is a hardened survivor who has gone through literal hell and back during his time throughout the zombie apocalypse that started in 2010 in the Walking Dead universe. He is currently still alive as of the end of The Ones Who Live, which takes place about 12 years after the start of the apocalypse in 2022. He's fought walkers, variant walkers, and other group of survivors such as the CRM, Woodbury, Terminus, and the Saviors, but none of this combat experience accounts for the vastly more deadly and dangerous threats present in the world of the live action version of The Last of Us. Joel has also survived the apocalypse in his verse far longer than Rick has had the chance to survive in his own verse. Although if you play The Last of Us 2, you know what fate awaits Joel when season 2 of HBO's The Last of Us drops sometime in the next couple of years or so. For Joel, in his universe, it's far more dangerous than the live action Walking Dead universe. Joel is another hardened survivor who has gone through hell and back as well. In his verse, the humans are relatively the same threat-wise to humans in The Walking Dead, and I would argue the humans are much deadlier in The Walking Dead with combatants such as Negan, Carver, Jesus, Morgan, and especially Beta. But the separator and the reason Joel wins combat experience is the infected in this universe. Joel's experience fighting the infected in his own verse outweighs Rick in his own verse, because the infected in The Last of Us are some of the most dangerous in any verse bar none. From the regular infected like runners and stalkers to the more deadly variants such as clickers, shamblers, bloaters, and the deadliest of them all that I think has yet to be introduced in the TV show, because I'm pretty sure they only got to the bloaters in season 1 of The Last of Us, the Rat King, which will definitely be making an appearance in The Last of Us season 2 for damn sure. Joel takes combat experience by a pretty considerable margin.
Pull out all the stops! Who will emerge victorious?
For experience, this goes hand in hand with combat experience to a degree. Rick has only experienced 12 years of the apocalypse in his verse, and as for Joel, Joel has survived his apocalypse for 2 decades and is still alive as of the season 1 finale of The Last of Us. It's pretty self-explanatory who wins here, so Joel takes experience as well.
It all comes down to this. This match decides the winner. This is the last round.
Alright, so this is where Joel gets completely outclassed by Rick in nearly every way. Rick's greatest strength is his extremely gifted intelligence, hand-to-hand combat mastery, near superhuman physical traits, mastery over numerous vehicles, both normal and military, master over all types of weapons, social influence, and stealth mastery, all of which will most likely play a role in this fight when taking into account Joel's weaknesses, some of which are extremely detrimental when fighting someone as deadly as Rick Grimes. In a one-on-one fight, Rick typically uses jabs, hooks, elbows, knees, kicks, tackles, headbutts, and even bites, such as when he tore out Joe's throat with his teeth in a similar fashion to a walker, even stating to General Bill that it was the worst thing he ever had to do in the apocalypse thus far. He nearly beat Tyrese to death with his bare hands, someone who had played in the NFL and is twice as big as Rick is physically. He won a 2v1 against some members of the Wolves, despite one of them being armed, and Rick using once again his bare hands. He killed Ethan, a huge physically imposing member of the Hilltop who was nearly 3 times the size of Rick, by slitting his throat, causing his blood to fall all over Rick's face despite him being armed. He strangled a savior to death even though he got jumped, and defeated 3 scavengers by himself while his hands were tied. And since these two are at their peaks, Rick will have his iron prosthetic hand with the hidden knife that he had while he was held captive at the CRM, a weapon so strong in the hands of Rick that it allowed him to get the upper hand numerous times in multiple fights, and even allowed him to break through an armored mask and beat down on someone's face so bad that their skull had completely been bashed in along with their face, which is just nuts. Rick also noticeably gets stronger numerous times throughout the series whenever he is pushed to the brink of near insanity and mental breakdown, such as when his girlfriend at the time, Jesse Anderson, was instantly devoured by walkers right in front of him after her son Sam started crying, and his first son Carl Grimes was shot in the eye, which nearly killed him by Ron Anderson moments later. This caused him to nearly lose his mind, as literally all by himself he went out into a massive horde of at least 1,000+ walkers who had invaded the Alexandria safe zone, and managed to kill hundreds of them by himself before others joined in and helped him defeat the gigantic horde. His rage power, which is gaining an additional boost in strength from anger, also allowed him to overpower his best friend at the time, Shane Walsh, and mind you, this was when he was a lot younger at the start of the series, physically at one of his weakest states. Shane at the time was the strongest member of the group physically, and his rage also, as mentioned in a previous section, allowed him to clear out an entire cell block of walkers on his own following Lori's death during the period where Rick was so mentally unstable he'd gone insane, something the rest of the group was struggling with when trying to clear out a portion of the prison with multiple people. And last but not least, his intelligence. Rick is one of the smartest characters in the entire Walking Dead universe. His very gifted intelligence allowed him to come up with several brilliant strategies to defeat his opponents. He's a master of body language, slit Negan's throat with a glass shard he found by being aware of his surroundings and quickly scanning his environment. He was the second person in verse that we know of to discover that walker guts serve as a camouflage against zombies, as he along with Glenn were able to successfully walk through the Walker-filled streets of Atlanta, Georgia without an issue until it started raining. He also quickly assessed that the people from Terminus from Terminus were dangerous and not to be trusted, and he again assessed his environment and noticed that they had several items that belonged to his friends. Rick has very few weaknesses as well that Joel could take advantage of, because most of these internal issues that he had were solved himself through his progression as a survivor in the apocalypse. In season 3, he was mentally insane after Lori's death and couldn't think some plans through, but this was solved and never returned after he moved on from her death at the end of the same season. In season 6, he became too cocky and was confident that his group could take on the Saviors. After Negan's iconic lineup and the deaths of Glenn and Abraham, he lost all his confidence, but this was regained completely by the time season 8 started. He even kept the confidence and was completely hell-bent on killing Negan after Carl was bit by a walker and died via suicide so he wouldn't return as a zombie. Post season 8, Rick had no noticeable weaknesses aside from being broken by the CRM, but that took multiple years of being held captive and him chopping off his own hand with an axe with no hope of escape until Michonne reunited with him and they took down the CRM together. Very tough battle for Joel to overcome, but Joel has some stuff working in his favor. The only hacks Joel has working in his favor but still isn't superior to Rick in is his intelligence, as it's above average at best. Joel here has the disadvantage of being significantly handicapped and weaker than his video game counterpart, as if we're We were talking about the video game version of Joel. He'd run circles around Rick all day, but TV show Joel being significantly older than his game counterpart at that point in the story and being inferior in almost every way, to the point where in the TV show he struggles quite a bit against multiple opponents, as mentioned before, is a huge factor as to why he's probably not going to win this fight. On top of the fact that his weaknesses could easily be blatantly exploited by Rick, as Rick is not stupid and he's going to pick up on that shit very quickly, as Rick has none of these weaknesses. Joel occasionally suffers from panic attacks and is partially deaf in his right ear, something that is going to be critical for this fight because Rick is going to take advantage of that all day, all night. That's how I think the hacks category goes. So hacks obviously goes to Rick, and the winner of this fight is Rick Grimes, who wins mid to high difficulty, and the loser is Joel Miller. Sorry, Joel, but
Ouch! No one could walk away from that. KO! You lose!
if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like, as it helps this video perform better in the algorithm and reach more people. Comment your thoughts on this video below. I go through all the comments, so any feedback is appreciated. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, consider making today that day. And when you subscribe, don't forget to hit that bell icon and set those notifications to all so that you never miss a future video. Also, don't forget to join my Discord server linked below. Need some new clothes for the summertime? Check out my merch store and get some dope Jades Corner merchandise and merch for my book series True Alpha. Make sure to use code JADEISBACK to get 25% off any item when you check out. And until next time, this is Jades Corner signing off. Peace.